Rich Dad, Poor Dad book series, which have sold over 26 million copies worldwide. Welcome back, Robert.
Thank you.
I wonder if we could talk a little bit about precious metals. Gold up about 11 weeks in a row, at least as of last Friday, with an earshot of $1,400 for gold. And, of course, silver, looking as though it's on its way to the target that you proposed on this show last time, $30. Well, we hit almost $24.90 last week.
It was 17 when I was saying that. Always remember this, because I was old enough to be part of the last bubble that kicked in 79. And if you know, what brought the bubble down was they raised interest rates. So as long as Bernanke is just depressing the dollar, what's it at 76%, the dollar index versus the basket of currencies, as long as he's just crashing the dollar and interest rates are at, zero when compared to inflation, then gold and silver are good investments. But if he raises interest rates like I think Volcker did up to 16, 17%, gold and silver will crash.
But, with the economy just barely holding on, and as you pointed out, it looks like the new economy has a unemployment rate of over 9.5%, almost twice the typical unemployment rate before 2008. One wonders if they can afford to raise interest rates.
You're on to why I think gold and silver are good investments is you have to ask yourself, what can the Treasury and the Fed do? What are they going to do is really kind of the question. And if they raise interest rates, you'll see unemployment skyrocket.
Well, I wonder if we could discuss the stock market equities. It looks like the Dow Jones, it's above that 11,000 point. Earnings are coming in much better than a lot of people expected. It seems as though it's those better than expected earnings that tend to keep stocks aloft.
I own millions of shares of stocks, companies I control, I own them. Stocks are for, the reason they're called common stocks is they're for common people. I don't like stocks. They're too manipulated. I don't like stocks. I just don't, because I'm an entrepreneur. I can beat the stock market left, right, and center. And the trouble with stocks is that you have no control of, some guys play precious metals via I have millions of shares of stock, but it's my company. I took a gold company, a silver company, and a copper mining company public. So I control the companies. There's a difference. I'm an insider. So I know what's going on inside the company. If I don't know it, then you either rely on these analysts. Most of them don't know what's going on. Stocks are for common people, the common shares. I don't touch them.
Well, let's move back then to precious metals. You talked about a possible bubble. But, Robert, in terms of the 1980s that you talked about, gold nowhere near, in inflation-adjusted terms, near its 1980s peak, which would be well above 2,000. And silver, would have to be 50, 75, even 100 to compare. But I think you'd probably agree gold has the potential for more upside ahead.
Yeah, what's happening right now is at the moment that Bernanke says is QE3 or now quantum easing 3, yeah. What's happening is they're trashing the dollar. That's why the dollar today was at 76. And so the dollar is worth less. And what he's doing is he's forcing guys who are savers back into the bond and the stock market, which keeps when you come out of savings, you go into the bond market, it keeps bond prices low and raises the equities market. So to me, it's all gambling. I don't do that stuff. I want to control. I own large apartment houses. I own oil wells because I want the production. And I own hard assets. I own the gold and silver physically.
Very good. It does take a bit of wherewithal and capital to reach that point. So, for the other 95% of the listeners, what's a good starting place for them?
Man, I didn't start this way. My daddy didn't give me jack. And I've also been, almost $1 million down when I had to restart again. So I understand. I just don't use being poor as an excuse. And if you're using being poor as an excuse, then you'll never get out of the problem. Because the problem's you. And, I'm not against Obama. I'm not for him. I wasn't for McCain or Palin. I'm pretty apolitical. I'm a capitalist. And I just go where the money is. So back as, like I said, I got out of gold in 79, a little over before the top blew up. But I knew that this guy Reagan and Volcker were going to raise interest rates. So you've got to just be aware of what these guys are doing. So if Bernanke even hints at stopping QEs and start raising interest rates, at that point, precious metals will do like anything else. It comes down.
The St. Louis Fed has a web page that monitors the Fed funds futures rate, and you can actually see several months ahead. They basically place bets on whether or not the Fed will raise, and then by how much, a quarter, a half, 0.75%. Right now, the odds of any type of hawkishness is low as zero. But as soon as we start to see, investors maybe next year, early next year, expecting higher rates, I mean, you seem to think that could put a cap on the precious metals.
Well, because most people are cowards and they'd rather save money, but as long as they're quantitatively printing money, then your dollar is going down in value, like I said, and this forces you to say, where do I go? So they have to go into the bond market, which is suicide, and then they're forced into the equities market. I think the safer bet, if you really know nothing, is silver. Silver, just buy some silver eagles. Do you know, I think that's absolutely the safest thing you can do. The reason for that is there's more gold than silver on planet Earth for the first time. And silver is an industrial metal and a precious metal, where gold is purely precious metal.
There is ample evidence that you may be right, and it's due to the fact that gold has been hoarded, whereas silver has been consumed in everything, cell phones, and
it's used everywhere. And there's less and less silver. And silver, I'm a miner. I build my own mines. Silver is a byproduct of gold. So if they dig a lot of gold, then they find some silver. But there's very few pure silver plays. So what I know about mining is that silver is, they call it poor man's gold. You should have been buying it at, $3 an ounce. And that's when I started telling people, look, this is the best deal with silver. But people said, no, the stock market is getting me higher returns. I said, might, but to me, silver is the smartest play. If you have no financial education at all, silver right now is still the best.
Junk silver for folks who are just starting out to keep those premiums low, junk bags of silver, a couple of silver plays. Jim Cramer is a big fan of Wheaton. That's one stock. One that I own is Stillwater, SWC, and then there's PAAS. I think that's Pan American, that Soros was involved with for a while, and Hecla Mines is another one.
I own mining companies. I don't buy mining shares. My philosophy is different. So that's not something I play, because I don't know those guys.
Well, Robert, as we wrap up here, I know that listeners are going to want to find out more about your latest classes, projects, CDs, videos. Can you tell folks what you've been up to and how they can get involved?
Yeah, I just want to state that in 1997, I said your house is not an asset. In 2002, I said this market was going to come down. And it has, and the biggest market crash hasn't come yet. It's still coming. I was on CNN predicting the fall of Lehman Brothers was going to get wiped out, and I've been on television. And I still say to everybody, it's not the economy, it's your education. So I have, 1973, I took classes on real estate investing, not so much about real estate, but how to manage debt. You've got to know how to manage debt, and if you're in debt, then you don't know how to manage it. It manages you. So for a few dollars, get some education and all this. And those guys like me, like I said, I'm about probably $700 million in debt. And it makes me rich. But if you don't know how to do it, don't do it. That's all I do. And nothing has changed for me. If a project doesn't cash flow, I don't want it. And if I can't control it, I love gold and silver because I have this big vault hidden someplace. I just go in there and play with it and walk out. I don't save money.
Just like Jesse Livermore used to.
My hero was Scrooge McDuck in Donald Duck. And it's only a game. You see, for me, it's not survival. Unfortunately, for most people, money is survival. But at my stage of my life, at my 60s, this is just fun for me. So I've made more money in the last 3 years than I have all my life. I made more in 3 years than the rest of my life. This is what most people don't know, is capitalists are the most generous people on earth. Like you look at this guy, Jobs, they're projecting the share of Apple to go over, 400 or 500. Because he's good, he's generous. He makes products that are for everybody. You look at Southwest Airlines; they provide a good product at a good price. It's these guys that think they should, Robin Hood, take from the rich and give to the poor. Basically like my poor dad, socialist and communist. My rich dad always said, if you have the Robin Hood theory, if you take from the rich and you give to the poor, you just create more poor people. Why do they do that? I don't know. You just create more people with more of these handouts. And that's why I've been an advocate more than anything else. We need financial education in our schools.
Why don't you give folks an idea of where they can direct their web browsers to find out more about what you're working on?
Well, I have a kind of a free blog. It's called CORE, C-O-R, Conspiracy of the Rich, and you can just join that. You know, it's my little remarks that I write for Yahoo also, but they censor me a little bit. But CORE, I'm uncensored. Rich Dad, you can find, just look for Conspiracy of the Rich blog or whatever they call it. I'm not techie, so I don't know that stuff. I just crank away and my techies take care of it.
All right, sir. It's always a real pleasure, and we thank you so much for
Thank you. Everybody buy silver. It's still the best deal. All right, bye-bye.